Hey guys, I'm Jason Wesley. I don't know why I agreed to do this, but I hope it doesn't suck.
Station to all units.
Prepare to copy.
You're listening to the 911 Strong podcast.
Don't act like I never told you.
With Aram and Kristen, bringing you stimulating discussion.
No, I like the sound of that.
An entertaining conversation.
And now, here's Kristen and Aram.
Hey guys, welcome to the 911 Strong podcast. I appreciate you guys joining us today. Today, if as you notice, Kristen's not here. And in Kristen's seat is a very special guest, Jason Wesley. He was nice enough to agree to join us, reluctantly.
Yeah.
But hey, we know you guys have many choices to listen to on your drive or at home in your office. And I really appreciate you guys taking the time to download this podcast. It really means a lot to me, especially at the beginning stages of the podcast when we're just growing. And the ratings have come in, and it shows that we're doing actually pretty good nationally. So continue to subscribe, tell your friends about us, and give us 5 stars and leave a comment. And that's important because in our week 4, let's say we're in our second week of our podcast. In week 4, we're going to have a giveaway, which includes that book from Ryan Dedman, one of these mugs, and it it spilled on me. Oh, boy.
One of these mugs filled with a bunch of stuff in it.
Yeah. It's not going to have anything stuffed in there, I promise. You'll have my leftover one.
Be a used mug.
And then a T-shirt. So, and we're continually shopping. So by week 4, who knows what's going to be in that prize package, but you'll be eligible for that prize package when we announce the winner. So the only way to qualify is to download the episode, subscribe, and leave us a review on Apple Podcast. All right, so hey, we're here. This is long overdue, Jason.
Yes, it is. And wouldn't you guess it, the day that we're supposed to do it, I end up having to go to the emergency room.
Yeah, I'm glad you brought that up because I wasn't sure if you were comfortable talking about that. So we had scheduled this.
My wristband right here.
Yeah. So Jason, man, he's a trooper, and I mean, it's a testament to how hard people in Hollywood actually work. I wouldn't classify myself as an actor by any means, but you know, I do a couple things here and there to promote myself. And I did one thing with Vet TV, and that took all day, and I was exhausted. And all I did a lot was sitting around.
Yeah.
So I can't imagine you being on a series. And for those of you that don't know, Jason was on several series. You were on Powers, One Tree Hill, Homeland, Army Wives, and you're currently working on a film called Limbo, right?
Yes.
Okay, so I mean, I can. That's a TV series that I had experience with. I can't imagine what a movie set's like.
Yeah, sometimes it can be a lot of kind of like the military, hurry up and wait.
Right.
You know, but a lot of times, depending upon your role on the show, you're kind of in your trailer or doing whatever, and then they let you know when your shoot time is, and so you know, you have a call time, you got to be there by so that they can do your hair, do your makeup, and all that kind of stuff. Me, I'm pretty easy when I show up. It's not a whole lot of makeup and a whole lot they have to do with my hair.
Yeah.
So.
Well, you are easy on the eyes, so with me, they had to spackle my face and Bondo here and there.
You look like The Rock now.
I wish, man. That'd be great. That's awesome. But you were sick and sick to the point where you had to get admitted to the ER.
Yeah, I had to go to the emergency room. Something hit me last night, like a ton of bricks, and I was severely dehydrated, and I knew that I couldn't be on the road.
Right.
There was a high chance I was going to pass out and injure myself or somebody else.
Right.
And so, fortunately, I have a Tesla, so I was able to put it in autopilot and get me most of the way to the emergency room. Got there, and they took me in, and you know, we're a couple hours late, but you know, we're here.
Yeah, I mean, I was actually surprised that you came through. I thought. I would have totally understood, too, because your health is paramount. We could always record this down the line. We only live about an hour and a half, 2 hours from each other. So we can film this at a later time, but you insisted on showing up. So it's not like I put a gun to his head, folks. He insisted. I actually gave him the exit, and he didn't take it.
He did. He said, we don't have to do this. Just rest up. You know, I have a situation, or I have a mindset that if I give you my word, I'm going to follow through.
Right.
And if the doctor would have said, you're not going anywhere, obviously I wouldn't have gone anywhere.
Right.
But, you know, in case those of you guys that do know me know that I'm a little bit more upbeat, I literally left the emergency room, drove straight here, and here we are. So
yeah, I mean, you still had the bandage fresh on your arm where they give you the IV.
Yes, I
and
still have all of it.
EKG. Yeah, I mean, it is a testament to who you are. I'm sure a lot of people know who you are, especially those that follow me because I share your stuff a lot. But for those that don't, I mean, you have an incredible work ethic. You're one of the hardest working guys in Hollywood, but you spend that time wisely because it's reflective of who you are on social media. On social media, you're not shy about who you are, no. Right? Whereas I think a lot of people, and I think that's why I have a tremendous amount of respect for you, is you don't conform. Mm-hmm. You are Jason, right? Yes. You're Jason Wesley, and you're not going to be shy about it. Yeah. And what a lot of people may not know about Jason is that he's a conservative, which may not be a big deal if we're just, existing, but in Hollywood, it's a huge deal.
It's a huge deal. There are, I mean, just look at the media of what just happened with Dave Chappelle. Dave Chappelle just came out with a special called Sticks and Stones. Right. You would think they would have got it with the name. Sticks and stones may break my bones, but words will never hurt me. Right. So he gave a great comedic act, and so a lot of people thought it was amazing. But you had media outlets like Vice and others that came out and said it was very misogynistic, very anti-LGBT. But I think the jokes were absolutely incredibly crafted, and he's one of the best to do it. But you have guys like that. You've got Mario Lopez. You know, everybody loves Mario. Everybody. And one of the things I'll say about Mario is that everybody that's worked with him can attest to who he is as a person. Sure. So whenever he came out and said what he said on Candace Owens' show and got all that blowback, it was hashtag cancel Mario or cancel Mario Lopez. When he got all that blowback, a lot of people were silent. Right. It's not that they were coming to Mario's back. It's that they were silent. Right. Because had they came to his defense, they would have been immediately castigated as people that are Trump supporters or are people that are against, everything that they stand for. And so, it's not a good place to be whenever you're trying to build a career. Yeah, I mean, because it can make or break a job, right? Because opinions matter. I mean, look at what happened with Kevin Hart. Kevin Hart, he finally got the job that he had wanted, and that was the host of the Oscars. And this was something that happened years ago. Yes. So, and I mean, Dave Chappelle even alluded to it on his comedy act, where he said that he's near perfect minus 4 tweets. Right. And I think that there are two things that we're dealing with in the culture, and it's really, really dangerous in Hollywood. One of which is, I think that we're dealing with an identity crisis. We have a lot of people that they don't know their identity. Sure. So they're searching for it, right? So what they do is they look for a group, because everybody wants to be a part of something. So they look for a group, they point at that group and say, well, this group accepts me, therefore I will subscribe to everything that this particular group stands for without thinking for themselves. And so it becomes like a bunch of fish, a school of fish. Are we going this way? Yes, everybody's going that way. Right. And it's like you have the media as the puppet master just kind of guiding, here's what we're saying this week. Here's what we're saying this week. And so you had Kevin Hart, who had 4 tweets that he tweeted, 10 years before that he already apologized for. Right. And he came out, and this isn't the first time that's happened with Kevin Hart. Kevin Hart, whenever the guys got kicked out of the Starbucks, when the law enforcement officers kicked them out, and they had every right to do that. Right. And it was Starbucks policy. Sure. Kevin was like, it's not a boycott Starbucks issue, it's a management issue. Right. Now, I didn't necessarily agree it was a management issue because she was just enforcing the rules of the corporation. Sure. She was doing her job. But then they spent millions of dollars going through this sensitivity training. They spent, millions of dollars refitting their bathrooms and all of that. And Kevin came out and said, well, I don't think it's a boycott, because everybody's like hashtag boycott Starbucks. And Black Twitter, it is a thing. Black Twitter literally laid into him and was basically saying that Starbucks was a white supremacist company. Yeah. And there was a guy who, they pointed to another guy who had been shot by a police officer sleeping outside or loitering outside of a Starbucks, where the manager called the police. Police showed up. They ended up getting into an altercation where the guy took his baton and beat him with it. So you have an officer that's getting beat. So he defends himself and fires one shot. The guy ends up dying. And then that becomes, oh, well, it's Starbucks' fault. Because had they not called, set this chain of reaction in motion. I mean, if that's where we are with society nowadays, we are in a world of hurt because everything can be blamed. If your mom says on your way out, honey, can you take out the trash? And then you get in a car accident later, I blame it on my mom because my mom told me to go take out the trash. Yeah. And had I not taken out the trash, I wouldn't have gotten this accident. Right.
Why do you think that is? I mean, because you alluded to it just now, and I think it's true. We're in such an entitled generation now, where even if it's our fault, we're entitled to have a scapegoat. Why? How did we get there?
I believe that it's the opposite of what the media and politicians are pushing, and that is love. The opposite of love is not hate. The opposite of love is selfishness.
Sure.
And so when you root it down, everybody wants some sort of a scapegoat, and the easiest thing to do whenever you're looking for a scapegoat is to not blame yourself, but to blame something or somebody else. And that's one of the roots of being a selfish person. I mean, sure. It's even on a basic level of seeing trash on the ground. Do you pick it up or do you walk past it? Right. You know, because maturity is not, an age. Maturity is acceptance of responsibility. Mm-hmm. So if you saw a 5-year-old, they're walking down the street and they see a piece of trash and they go pick it up and throw it in the trash. If you saw that from a distance, you would say, wow, that kid's very mature. Right. But then you've got a 35-year-old man walk past, and he was the one that actually threw it down on the ground. And you see it in parking lots. People don't put the shopping cart back. It's simple things like that I saw a shift whenever they started giving participation trophies. I literally saw a shift. Right. Because you were rewarding. And if you look at, what movie is that? The Incredibles, the first Incredibles, right. Where he says, how much more are we going to celebrate mediocrity? Right. Yeah. And so now you have guys like Gary Vee, you have E.T. the hip hop preacher, you have a lot of these Jocko, who are very motivational, more so alpha males. Sure. David Goggins, former Navy SEAL. You have all of these guys coming out, and they have millions and millions of followers because there is a desire for men to be men. Right. Jordan Peterson said the same thing he has a very large male following. And a large part of that is that men in our culture are being emasculated. Right. And so when you start emasculating men, you start taking away the principles and the standards that men were supposed to rise to, and that was protection, service, love, and taking care of the widows, taking care of the children, But
you can't think like that anymore because that's so archaic and barbaric, right?
I know. And if you say that in LA, they're going to label you a Trump supporter. I think that a lot of times people in LA look for reasons to label you a Trump supporter. Sure. I'll tell you this, I didn't vote for President Trump. Right. I had my reasons why at the time. And I was having a conversation with a friend of mine who is an actress. And another actress had heard me talking about Hillary. And I had just finished talking about Donald Trump and my reasons for not feeling comfortable voting for him. And then I got on Hillary and I started talking about the issues that I had with her. Very credible. Everything that I had was backed up by facts. Sure. And she jumped on me. She said, "Oh, you're gonna vote for Trump. You're a Trump supporter. Get out. I don't even want to talk to you." Wow. And literally, we didn't talk. As a matter of fact, she apologized at one point because she needed me to come on a radio show. And so she apologized. She's like, "Hey, everybody has their disagreement because the election already passed. There's nothing she could do about it." And I told her at the time, I said, "I'm not voting for President Trump." But day one, he has a clean slate. He had never been a politician before. Right. And I had looked at his videos of things that his policy ideas since the early 80s. And I was like, it's crazy because he was a registered Democrat for a long period of time.
Yeah, a lot of people don't know that.
Yeah. And I was like, he has very conservative values. I think it was more like a Rudy Giuliani type politics, Sure. And so... I was like, well, I don't know. I feel like he's, both sides of the same coin. I feel like Hillary's the political corruption. I felt like he was the corporate greed corruption. Sure. And so, but the more I started digging into the facts, started looking into how he acquired Mar-a-Lago and how he was the first person to allow blacks and Jews to come to his private club, and that was really frowned against at the time. Right. I started finding all this stuff out. I started seeing his actions and seeing all the people that adored him prior to him running for the election. And I started thinking to myself a little bit different. And then I was like, well, let's see what he does in reference to policy. Sure. And then he started making good policy. And I had my concerns about people that he had in his administration. Sure. I had a list of them. It was probably like 4, 5, 6 that I was like, this guy's corrupt. This guy's a bad guy. This guy's connected, And all of a sudden, that guy got fired. That guy got fired. That guy got fired. Yep. That guy got, and they got replaced with better people. And I was like, okay, All right, and so for me, it was like a ship turning around. It wasn't like a quick turn, and all of a sudden I'm on Trump train. Right. It was a slow turn, and then the more the media and the more Hollywood just started being very vindictive and just hateful. I was like, I can't support what you're supporting because of all the hate that you're spewing.
Right.
And it wasn't love, it was selfishness to gain power and gain control. So then you started the Me Too movement. You had, Harvey Weinstein, all of a sudden, you started having this house of cards start to crumble a little bit. You have the Jeffrey Epstein, all of a sudden he's murdered in his cell.
Right.
And just last week they dropped the case.
Yeah.
I mean, there's too many. I'm still wondering what happened with the Vegas shooter.
Right. It's all transparent. It's all obvious, but for whatever reason, they choose not to investigate that. But they'll take all the speculation and far left field stuff about Trump and make that fact.
Yes, absolutely.
So it's very. I think in a lot of ways you pointed out to what a lot of people are thinking. It's so one-sided, so obvious, and it's getting old. Let's move on to something else.
Absolutely.
If you take the person out of it, if you took Donald Trump out of the equation and replace him with whatever.
Doesn't matter.
Joseph Smith, whatever you want to name, right? His policies and what he's done has been remarkable.
Absolutely.
Lowest unemployment rate in the history, and that's across all demographics too.
Yes.
And it's been the highest amount of acceptance for the LGBTQ community too.
Absolutely.
As a matter of fact, somebody came out on one of the anti-Trump networks. I forget if it was MSNBC or CNN, and he was the president of the LGBTQ, one of the organizations, and he was actually in support of Trump.
Yeah.
And that totally turned off the host of that show.
Yeah.
And that went viral. So I can't imagine a lot of people didn't see it. But
yeah, absolutely.
But he's doing so many good things, but because it's Donald Trump, because they portray this guy as a racist.
That's the narrative that they have going now. Before it was the Mueller report and it was Russian
Russian collusion. That didn't work out, so they had to find something different.
They're going with racism.
Yeah.
That's what they're going with now.
Right.
And there's so much that you can point to that shows that Donald Trump isn't a racist.
Sure.
I grew up in the South, in South Carolina and Florida. I saw actual racists.
Right.
And it was kind of few and far between. It really wasn't, everybody was pretty much living with each other, but they were just saying what it was.
Right. We actually had this conversation. It was more like a passive racism,
yes,
right? It wasn't like violent racism.
Exactly. It wasn't like, I'm going to go kill you. You don't have a right to live. It was like, well, as long as they stay over there and I stay over here, you leave me alone, I leave you alone, we good. I mean, that was pretty much the most racist things. I used to jump off bridges into the PD River with a bunch of rednecks that flew the rebel flag. Wow. Now the rebel flag and the flag of the South are actually different.
Sure.
When you look at them. I mean, a lot of people don't know the representations of those flags. They just see,
they want to dismiss the history.
Yeah, absolutely. And so I used to jump off bridges with these guys.
Sure.
And so I'm half black, half white. I grew up in a predominantly black community in the hood, and we would get jumped, our bikes would get stolen.
Sure.
People would get involved in drugs, people would get shot, stabbed, whatever. And then we literally moved out of that into, like, when my parents got divorced, into a very low income white trailer park. Mm-hmm. And the children, the people there accepted me. I saw more racism against my brother because he has a different father. My mother's white, blonde hair, blue eyes, and his dad is he's got a different father, and so I saw more racism against him in a black community than I ever did against me in a low income, quote, racist white community. And so so my experience with racism was a little bit different, but at the same time, my identity wasn't in my race. But that's where I go back to what we're dealing with now is an identity crisis. You have people that are saying, they'll look at me and say, well, because you have black in you, you're black. Right. And they revert back to the one drop of black blood rule. And then I'll ask them, what do you think the one drop of black blood rule was about? And when you actually research it and find out that it was about keeping black people in bondage, keeping them in slavery, that you had to have like 4 to 5 generations of purification. So if somebody, we'll say the plantation master, he came down, he raped a black woman, had a mixed son, who is me. And then I end up having, relations with a fully white woman, my child is going to look very white.
Sure.
Right? If my son ends up having sex with a fully white woman, that's only 3 generations.
Sure.
They're going to look really white.
Right.
It was one of the reasons why slaves couldn't look the white man in the eyes.
Right.
They wanted to make sure that these people who were mixed race, who had one drop of black blood, that they couldn't just walk around the city and not be noticed as a slave and be able to get people out. But tell me the last slave movie in Hollywood you saw with people that are lighter skinned than me.
Right.
You haven't.
Right. Yeah, you're right. You're such an. When we had this conversation a couple weeks ago, I think the word I used was, "You're such an enlightened man."
Thank you.
There's so many dimensions to Jason Wesley more than what people see on screen, and it's because you do your homework. So we have guys like you on social media that do their homework. They spew facts, right?
Yeah.
This isn't made up stuff.
No.
This isn't from a script. You do your research and you have
Yes.
facts, and everybody else has access to these facts as a part of history. Yet they still refuse to believe what you have to say and will just be strung by their puppet strings and believe the media narrative.
It's their cognitive dissonance.
Yeah.
They have already made up their mind
Yep.
about what a particular issue is, and now what they're doing is they're trying to find reasons to make that fit their narrative.
Right.
I didn't support Donald Trump, and then there were things that he did that I agreed with. It was the things that he was doing that created the support for me.
Right.
It was the things that the far left was doing that was pushing me to support him even more.
Sure.
Because it was just such hate.
Right.
And so I asked friends of mine in Hollywood, the people that they know where I stand, but they're not going to come out and say anything. They're like, no, I don't know. I asked them, I'm like, would you put a Trump sticker on your car? In less than 1 second, they say, no. Right. I say, why? Not because a lack of support for Trump.
Sure.
I said, even if I gave you, X amount, that was from the hospital earlier. But I asked them, would you put a Trump sticker on your car?
Right.
And they literally, less than a second, no.
Yeah.
Not just no, but hell no. Because they know that their car is going to be vandalized.
Sure. Yeah.
But I can put a Bernie, I can put a Beto, or Robert Francis or whatever. I can put any of the left's people on my car, and there's nothing that's going to happen to your car. Right. As a matter of fact, people were putting Hillary stickers on their car, Obama stickers in the South, and their cars were fine.
Right.
Because that's not how conservatives live. It's, well, as long as y'all stay over there and you ain't messing with me, I don't really care.
Right. We talked a little bit about our upbringing, and we have very similar upbringings. Do you think it's we are conservative because of our value system, the way we were raised?
Partially. I think that the main part of conservatism is seeking truth. The more you seek truth versus an idea of what you think something is,
right,
you will inherently be led towards being a conservative.
Sure.
I truly believe that.
Yeah.
Because that's the epitome of what love is. When you're seeking truth and you find out that love does win, and when I say love wins, I don't mean the same thing that the media says when they say love wins. Because what they mean when they say love wins is sex wins.
Yeah.
Right?
Right.
They're not talking about real love.
Right.
And I'm not saying that to say that people who are part of the LGBT community don't love anybody.
Sure.
I've had friends of mine come out to me, and I said, let me ask you something. Do you think that I love you? And, one of my friends, he said, yeah. I said, does that mean that I'm gay because I love you? I said, do you love me? And we had done business trips all over the country. We'd ridden in the car 16 hours one way. I said, we've got hotel rooms together. We've slept in the same bed. I've embraced you while you were crying. You've embraced me while I was crying. Sure. We have a deep connection. What changes from this to that?
Right.
And he couldn't give me an answer, unfortunately. And I'm not saying that he's wrong. And so what I am saying is that I think a lot of times when people have a stance on something, whether it's in support of the LGBTQIA, sometimes Y community, I think that when you say you disagree with that, what happens is they come and say, you're saying that we're bad people.
Right.
I'm not saying you're bad people because I have really good friends. One of my yoga instructors, he's amazing. His character is impeccable. His integrity is outstanding. I look at somebody's heart just like Martin Luther King talked about. I looked at who he was as a person. And if he called me and said, Jason, I need you to come pick me up on the side of the road at 2 o'clock in the morning because my tire blew, you can guarantee that I'm going to go help him.
Right.
But if he was always hateful to me, or if he had touched me inappropriately, or attempted to touch me inappropriately, I'm probably going to keep my distance.
Right. And that has everything to do with his character and not his disposition.
Absolutely.
Right.
Absolutely.
And I think that's, you bring up a good point. A lot of people associate us with, when I say us, conservatives, as bigots, as anti-gay, LGBT, whatever. And it's not the case. It's just, it's not who we are inside. It's not our preference, but that's all it is a preference.
Yeah.
You know, I may like coffee black. You might prefer yours with cream and sugar.
Yeah.
It doesn't mean that I hate you because you drink your coffee different. But it's just that we're different, but we can coexist. Where it seems like on the left, if we're different, we can't coexist.
We can't coexist.
We can't be in the same room drinking coffee differently.
No. What do you do? Oh, you put cream and sugar? That means you like white people. Like, I mean,
it's ridiculous.
It is,
but it's probably a fair thing to say because I mean we've heard more ridiculous things.
Oh my gosh! It's the news cycle in today's culture is incredible at how many things that happen and how many things that we forget.
Yeah.
Because of so many things that come up. You have the Stars of Will and Grace that just came out last week, and Eric McCormick he tweeted at the Hollywood Reporter last week calling for it to report the identities of those attending a Beverly Hills fundraiser for Donald Trump. So in quotes, so the rest of us can be clear about who we don't want to work with. Deborah Messing, also an actress, promotes a message saying that black Trump supporters are mentally ill. Now, she would be the same person that would look at me and call me black. And you know, as somebody who's mixed and just as much as I do, we don't call ourselves a particular race because our identity is not in that.
Right.
Personally, my identity is in Christ. Mm-hmm. So it doesn't matter what your background is. It doesn't matter. Listen, if God can call David a man after his own heart, and he sent somebody to the front lines to die so that he could sleep with his wife, that confused me for a long time. But I started looking, I was like, man, this guy, David, was the least of the least and was raised up to be king. Mm-hmm. And he was always honest with God. When he didn't like him, he was honest about it.
Right.
When he cried out, he was honest about it. And I think that the more we seek truth, and that's what I was telling you earlier, the more that we seek truth and seek understanding and allow God to guide that, that is why we kind of look up and go, oh, I'm a conservative.
Yeah, I think, I think it has a lot to do with the era we grew up in too. Mm-hmm. You and I were raised during the Reagan era. Yeah. And he was such a cool president, right? And when we were in school, you were what elementary school kids talk about the president? And I think that's what's happening right now. My kids are elementary school age and they're talking about Trump. I'm like, when did kids at that age talk about?
I had no clue about half of it, you know.
But it's infiltrating the media, though. It's on their YouTube channels that they watch, and it's on their TV shows that they watch. So I think it's so polarizing, whether you're for this president or not. I think it's given a lot of subject matter to talk about. I mean, we're doing it now, and that's something that we had a pregame, and we never even brought up Trump once. But it's so funny how it just comes up in our everyday conversation that it's going to be one of those things where, when our kids are our age, they're going to be talking about how cool Trump was. Yeah. You know, when he was their president. And, and I think it was about time, because during the Reagan era, we were at the Cold War. We had the Russia thing going on right now, and I think it was really a time that the United States needed to have that powerful persona that you didn't mess with us. The military needed to be bolstered, and I think somewhere in between then we kind of lost that. We actually reduced our numbers in our military, and we took a softer stance on things, and I think it allowed other countries to bully us a little bit.
Absolutely. And I mean, if anybody watches the movie Black Hawk Down under President Clinton and the UN, you'll understand really quick why you don't want the UN to be operating and running our military.
Yeah, it's really sad what's going on there. And these are not nobody nations. These are world influencers too, and it's sad that it seems to be us against them right now. Yeah. But it shouldn't be that way. I mean, we set the tone worldwide, and it's just to the point where it's really just I'm besides myself when I look at world news, how much people hate us because of who our leader is right now.
Yeah.
And it's not reflective of who we are as a people. Look at what's going on in Hong Kong right now.
Yeah.
I mean, they're more patriotic Americans than we are.
Yes.
I mean,
those people that were being attacked by their government were waving American flags.
Yep.
Now, I'm thinking, Trump, why don't you say something about this? Here's a great example.
Yeah.
He hasn't yet, and I don't know what that has to do with. Maybe it has to do with the tariffs and the sanctions on China, whatever he's got planned, and why he hasn't said anything. I don't know. I've definitely questioned it because it's a great example of these people recognize who we are as a nation, and I think that that you have a lot of politicians. They constantly say, "Oh, well, that's not who we are."
Sure.
But they recognize who Americans are.
Right. Well, we're going to take a little break, and when we come back, we're going to talk a little bit more about. We're going to keep this conversation going when we get back, but we'll be right back.